Hi, welcome to Wetpixel Live. My name's Adam Hanlon. I'm the editor of Wetpixel, and we'd really like to thank Inon or Inon for sponsoring this episode. They do a range of strobes, lights, and accessory lens ports for a wide variety of cameras. Please head on over to inon.jp to have a look at what they get up to. Lots of great products on there. And while I'm in the mood for saying hello and thanks to people, hello, Alex.
Hello, where's my thanks? What have I done?
Thank you, Alex. Obviously, I'd like to introduce Alex Mustard, regular contributor, and we've been asked a question by a listener to Wetpixel Live, a viewer, sorry, not really a listener, is it? They've asked about whether it's valuable to set your underwater photography setup on a table and then use this to practice things like strobe positioning, lens positioning, so on and so forth. So I thought I'd throw that to Alex. Do you think there's value in shooting your underwater photography setup in the dry, as it were, as a practice tool?
I guess yes. I think the first thing I would say is a point that I make in my book is that although the majority of us can measure in days the amount of time in a year that we're active underwater photographers, we remain underwater photographers as much as we engage with the hobby. And I think any activity that makes you engage with your underwater photography will make you a better underwater photographer in the long run. It will, give you those extra minutes of experience, extra minutes of thinking about things that allow you to improve and choose better pictures. So I would encourage anyone to do sort of any sort of engagement with their underwater photography because it will pay you off.
Sure.
That said, I do think you can learn plenty about lighting in particular by working on a table, but with a lot of limitations. And the first thing I would say is it's predominantly going to work with macro. I don't think you can really develop your underwater wide angle lighting on a table. And secondly, I think you can get very misled very quickly if you do things wrong. I regularly demonstrate things to people on tables and allow them to see really big differences in their lighting. But it's because I'm there and I'm able to make sure that they are seeing what's happening and seeing the result. For example, in a room, if your table is relatively close to a white wall or something, or the table's particularly reflective of things, you could very easily get misled that a particular strobe positioning is doing something for your photography. Yeah. So just the whole setup of how things are going, it actually makes a big difference to choose the right type of subject as well to shoot. That's relatively representative. You can have something that's way too much translucent, or you can have something that's really just so opaque that it doesn't take the light quite the same way as something underwater. And there's lots of little things like that can set you off in the wrong direction. But for macro, you can definitely learn something. I think
if you have the opportunity, and obviously this is all in present times particularly, if you have the opportunity of doing the same exercise in a swimming pool, that has real value because you're getting a much more realistic evaluation of how the light is moving through the water. And that obviously once you move into dry land, you can't really simulate that. You can't simulate the effects of the water.
And see, for me, the issue is much less about through the water. And it's more about the other surfaces. When you're diving, taking pictures underwater, you don't have great big tiled walls next to you or big white walls of the house. And it's that reflective light that I think can really mislead people, both in the swimming pool and in the thing. Now, the swimming pool is great as long as you stay away from those edges. And you work in the middle of the pool with shooting subjects with nice open water behind them. Then you'll get a fantastic, that is much better than being on a table. But if you end up working near a wall or something like that, you can really get very confused. And people often go in the swimming pool and maybe work in the corner, or if it's at their pool at home, it tends to be quite a small pool. I haven't got any sort of pool. I'd love a small pool, but it can be quite misleading. Whereas underwater in the ocean, the light goes and it's gone. Whereas in the pool, it goes and it's back again. And I think that can really make people get misled. And I teach underwater photography in the swimming pool on my Cayman workshops. And I'm very careful about where I set all the setups up so that I know that the pool is not influencing the lighting. And again, if you're trying to practice and you maybe don't know that much, just like on a table, you can actually end up misleading yourself a lot, not because you're doing anything wrong with the camera, but actually because of where you've chosen to do the practice. I would say the point I was going to make before is that there's a lot to be benefited, particularly if you haven't done any underwater photography for a while, in getting your camera out and putting it together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A really important thing that, there's no doubt there'll be plenty of people that first dive after this long lockdown and gap from diving will have camera problems, will have camera floods, because they've not put it all together for a while. They've forgotten. And that is really worth it. Finding out now that something is not working, when you can go and get it sent. Well, my housing is actually currently away, having some TLC to it. It was nothing that was working perfectly. I just I wanted some of the accessories inside it, the third party accessories, tweaked up a little bit. So that's currently away with Kevin at Aquafot here in the UK. He's working his magic on it. I'm doing all my crummy DIY, to be honest. But it's the fact that I'm not able to shoot now, so now's the time to check it's working. And if anything in your system has been bugging you a little bit, now's the time to get it sorted. So I think that's really worth it. If you are itching for an underwater photography activity and you're stuck at home, Fourth Element, who are friends of both of ours, are running at the moment a competition for underwater photos taken in your bathtub. Now, I know not everyone has a bathtub or a bathtub that they can fit it into, but it's a very fun competition where people try and create basically pictures that look like they are not taken in a bathtub. These are obviously fun pictures, none of those not safe for work pictures. But if you look up under bathwater photographer of the year, you'll find it. And you may see someone who looks a little bit like me in one of the promotional videos. I don't know.
This is their second edition 2. There was edition last year, and actually it was amazing how creative people have been. You were mentioning earlier about reflections off pool walls. It's amazing that some of the creativity and some of the ideas that people have had, really inspiring actually. So yeah, get in the bath with your camera and try it out. And something else, something else that I think pays dividends as well, and obviously it's not specifically underwater, but getting out and shooting your camera. So take it out of its housing this time, put some other lenses on it, or keep it, whatever blows your hair back, and go out. And there's so many opportunities, I think, for almost everyone to get out and use their camera, experiment with modes, settings, and techniques. All of these will definitely pay dividends when you do eventually get back underwater. And the more time you could spend shooting, if you're lucky enough to have birds or wildlife around you, these are really good opportunities. But equally, you can shoot pretty much anything, and it will pay dividends in terms of your underwater shooting when you eventually get back underwater, for sure. Yeah.
What I would add to the pile is indulge yourself in photography, in photos. Go get out there, look at other people's work, whether it's online or whether it's actually treating yourself to a couple of photography books. And you'd be amazed if you go on some of the secondhand bookshop sites online, how cheaply you can get hold of really phenomenal photography books, and really, really enjoy them. They don't have to be underwater photos, but it can be incredibly inspiring looking at really great photography. It reminds you, I love looking at great wildlife and nature photography on land, and just looking at it and going, what can I take from that and apply to underwater photography? And it can really drive your photography forward. And I often find that more inspiring than looking at amazing underwater pictures, where I just tend to be going, oh, I'm just jealous of that. So it's but looking at pictures is great.
And taking it, and while we're on the subject of books and things like that, I mean, obviously there's a huge array of photography, camera specific photography books. So you can consult. Obviously the user manuals tend to be pretty dry. I'm not going to suggest you sit down and read the camera user manual. I've yet to read one myself. I look at them periodically, but I don't read it. But there are, Tom Hogan, for example, with the Nikons, does an amazing job of really picking the technical details out of cameras. And again, that can give you creative ideas. And there are versions for all cameras out there, and so spending a bit of time diving into the camera menu areas that you don't normally go into. I think some underwater photographers, we only use a tiny fraction of what cameras can do, and being at least familiar with some of the other things they can do that we don't normally do, it actually can be quite a good process to inspire some creativity and to look at doing things differently.
One thing that I'm involved in and very aware of at the moment is that there's a lot of really good online teaching for photography in general, or online photography, and there's all sorts of levels you can dip into with it. I run a underwater photography online course. I'm not going to promote it here, partly because it's a bit oversubscribed at the moment. But I don't want Wetpixel Live to be about me promoting what I'm doing. But there are other people teaching underwater photography online. There are societies and things around the world that have talks and things about underwater photography online. And there's also a huge amount of content. I think because I have to go on to, I have assignments for the people running my course, doing my course, and I have to go on and give them feedback and everything. So I'm always logging into the Photography Experts is the company I do it with, their website. And I think it's making the cookies on my computer go mad. And so my Facebook feed is flooded with every photography course being run online in the world. And it's just the cookies are crazy. I'm because I'm logging into a photography teaching website, 10 times a day. I'm just flooded with photography adverts. But there's loads of fantastic courses out there. I have to say, from my own experience, I think I would definitely sign up for a live talk course as opposed to one where you're buying pre-recorded lectures. The more interaction you get with the person teaching it, the better. And those courses may be more expensive, but I think that you get a much better teaching experience. And then a lot of the add-ons I think are really valuable. I know in my course, the feedback we get, because they're just fun little assignments, but actually the interaction generated amongst the small class for each course, the learning people get from that, the fact that they get that camaraderie and everything, that really adds to the process. So I'd definitely recommend people look up courses that have got live teaching where you can ask questions and you're not just paying for access to a talk. And you've got the chance to interact with the other classmates. I think those things really mark out a special course. Those would be my buyer advice.
And I think that brings me quite neatly, or segues nicely into this idea. I mean, the other way that we can encourage ourselves and get better at being underwater photographers is to talk to other underwater photographers, and that can be in a formal setting, like within a training setting that you've just mentioned, Alex. But equally, pick up the phone, speak to your friends, get online, go into chat rooms, go into forums like Wetpixel. There's lots and lots of ways we can communicate. And in many ways, some of the problems that we experience or the ideas that we generate are often as a result of those types of conversation. And I think one of the things that's happened, obviously, during this period of lockdown, for example, when we haven't been able to mix as freely, the travel's been part of it, but equally, this idea, this sort of cross-fertilization of ideas that you get through interacting with the photographers, and we have the technology now to be able to do that. I mean, this episode is coming through via YouTube. There's lots of ways we can now communicate with Zoom, all these other. So schedule some time to actually talk about underwater photography to other underwater photographers. So I think that's a good productive use of time. So anyway, we've talked around the houses. Thank you very much, Alex. No problem. And I'd like to thank our sponsor again, Inon, for sponsoring the episode. Obviously, great supplier of strobes and accessory lenses and lights, and various other things. I'd like to thank you for watching. Please feel free to add some ideas you may have for keeping your underwater photography skills sharp while you're not diving. And drop us a like if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again soon.